position. Ferrari will bring them to the circuit for you. They'll set them up, and then they will let you go. And these cars will also be running tomorrow and on Monday as well. So the drivers of the FXX-K Evo get an opportunity to race it around the Circuit of the Americas. Watch the rear wing pop up when the drivers get to a certain speed as well. These cars, which have a 6.3-liter naturally aspirated V12 engine, as well as a hybrid component that give them an extra boost of power, have no issues whatsoever going well north of 200 miles an hour.
and you'll see it here down the back straightaway as they get up to speed, and the technology is just absolutely amazing. You get a chance to get an up-close look at how well that body is sculpted. There you can see the movable aerodynamics in the back.
Movable aerodynamic device. Check.
Check. Got that. Well, you feel like you should have rockets as well, right? I mean, it's almost...
Engage the hyperdrive. So a variety of different colors out on the track as well. You can see the dark green and the orange leading the way around for the first time as the little spits of flame from the dual exhaust on either side. All of the cars that are out on track right now being enjoyed by, I would imagine, their owners. But a ton of variety. You can get any color you want. Might have to pay a little bit more for some of the other colors, but Brian, you and I were talking about this over lunch. Why would you go for a Ferrari in anything but red? It's just classic.
Yeah, to me, it screams Ferrari, right? But then so does that outline, that shape that is distinctively Ferrari. And it doesn't really matter which model number it is. You just look at something and go, that's a Ferrari.
Yes.
You just know, right?
They all are of the same lineage. I mean, the headlights, you can tell a Ferrari is a Ferrari based on the headlights, but there's something beyond that. There's something that even if you took the yellow and black prancing horse off of the nose of each of these cars, you would still know.
Is that legal?
No, and do not try. I think there's a Ferrari police force that comes and arrests you if you touch one.
Probably has a sensor on it, and they know back in Maranello if you've removed one of the emblems.
I do love that silver and black look, though. Very good for an Oakland Raiders fan. And see, the cars have numbers on the side. They don't need to have a number on the side. They aren't going to go on the street, but they're meant for being on the racetrack. Not that they race. We're not looking at competitive times here. We are looking at pure enjoyment.
You are not looking at competitive times, but I guarantee you that every driver in the car knows the lap time that they're turning, because somebody on the wall is probably calling a time to them, or they may have the ability to do that from in the car. But no, this is not a competition. This is about the pure enjoyment of the most technologically advanced car that you could probably sit in, that you can actually buy and go operate.
It's roughly 1,000 horsepower. Intrinsically, from the engine, you've got somewhere in the region of low 800s, high 700s, low 800s. But the electrical component, which is the hybrid portion of it, boosts it by almost 200 horsepower.
And that's what's amazing to me. A lot of the hybrid systems that you see in motorsports will boost by 50 horsepower, 65, 70 horsepower, something like that. But that number is huge, almost 200. And
the thing that's really staggering, obviously, you look at these cars and you can tell they are built for racetracks. Everything on them screams, do not get me anywhere near a speed bump. So you would never want to take these on the road, even if you could. That's because of the downforce generated by every aspect of the car. It's 1,830 pounds of downforce, near enough, at max speed. That's 1,800 pounds of something pushing down on you, holding you to the earth as you are trying desperately to fly away from it. You're a pilot, too.
I know. I'm sitting here kind of like amazed by all of it.
Gosh, and the FXX just able to pass other cars with ease and laughter. You can almost hear it giggling as it goes around the outside of the 599 through the S's.
listen. Just
That's the sound of a former Formula One engine that has been manipulated and perfected into what is behind the driver of that green and orange car. Now, the impressiveness doesn't just stop with the car getting up to speed or being held to the ground. It also comes with the stopping power of these cars, because it's great if you can go really fast. It's not so great if you can't slow down very well. Carbon ceramic Brembo brakes is what is equipped with each of these FXX-K Evos. That is a very large, very powerful brake disc.
well, and the aerodynamics on the FXX-K, the movable aerodynamics, obviously they are laid back and the aerodynamics reduced as the car gets up to speed, because you're looking for that straight line speed, but in the middle portions and in the braking zones, you'll see it pop up. And a lot of people think, well, you want the downforce in the corners so that it holds to the road, but you also want it in the braking zone. So when you go to the brakes, the car is forced down onto the racetrack and it will stop so much quicker. Also see the tunnels out the back of it, that diffuser channeling air out, much like an airplane, compresses air and then it expands and creates lift. This is just the opposite. It's upside down. It accelerates out the back. It creates downforce on the back of that car. And you talked about the aerodynamics, both through it, under it, around it, and over it, maximizing every bit of it that they can.
One of them comes back into the pit lane having a tire pressure adjustment. The other thing that's really cool with these brakes is that they are manipulated so that the energy that you gain through braking is not just dissipated, it's harnessed. And that, in effect, goes back to giving you a horsepower boost when you need it. They've got the hybrid system in the same way that, for example, Toyota figured out how to do in the World Endurance Championship. Ferrari figured out how to do it and then figured out how to do it better, and then how to do it in a manner which they could share with their customers.
Well,
That's what's on these cars.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing about all of the FXX cars. The technology that is put into these, it's experimental. It's kind of a prototype, if you will, but this technology is what's going to find its way into the next Ferrari street car, the 296, and the models that come after that. So they don't just build a futuristic prototype to say, hey, look, let's put this in a show. They build them. They allow people to own them and to run them. But Ferrari harnesses the information that comes off of all of these cars. You've got the FXX-K that's out there, the FXX-K Evo, the FXX Evo, the FXX. We'll see all those different types of cars in these sessions. But Ferrari, the factory, still harnesses every bit of information that comes from these cars. They take it back and they utilize it for future models, like I said, that you'll find on the street or perhaps even in a race car.
Well, and that's a great example, the 296. It's now racing in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. We saw it at Daytona and Sebring. We've not yet seen it in the World Endurance Championship because they are still running the 488 Evo, much like the cars we have in Ferrari Challenge this weekend. But they will be bringing the 296 into the WEC next year. They will be bringing it into Ferrari Challenge as well. But the diffuser on the FXX-K Evo, that is the diffuser, very similar to the diffuser that we've seen for 24 hours and 12 hours of racing from the pit lane, Brian. This is the back end of the cars. They look very similar, and you can see the lineage carrying over to the modern technology. The most difficult part of the 296 to understand is the diffuser, because it's so complex, and you can tell they've gained so much through aero in that one aspect of the car.
I think the great thing is you look at the FXX.
Yes, the original.
And you look at it as it goes away. I think the cool thing is the tunnels where the air is coming out, the diffuser at the back of the car, with them being painted white, they're so visible.
Yeah.
They're so distinct. So it gives you an idea of how that air comes flying out of it. It goes past the 599XX.
I think he was moving over to make sure that there were no issues.
I
And
would
then
move over.
there is an FXX-K right behind
Yeah.
the FXX. So now you get the opportunity to see the old generation in front, the newer generation right behind, and you see the differences between them.
I think it's hard to even think old generation because they all look like spaceships, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you see, I mean, I see an F40.
I was just going to say, I see an F40.
Yeah, I
with
mean,
the one in front.
Yeah, you see bits and pieces of all of the models. We talked about this earlier. There is something about it. You just go, that's a Ferrari.
Yeah.
You can, and it doesn't matter the model.
I love the fin that runs over the engine cover on the back. It's just a wonderful visual that makes you remember, oh yeah, this is a team that's dominated F1 in the past. This has lineage of an F1 car that also has a fin over the engine cover.
And you know, I'm watching right now the 83. We don't have filters on our cameras, but as it went through the light, it's so polished and the paint is so beautiful. Almost had little stars coming off of it, like it was something that we had on a filter. That was not a filter. That was actually reflection off the paint. The cars are absolutely stunning.
Sparkle, sparkle, as Homer Simpson would say.
Look at the exit underneath the back of that car where the air comes out, and all of that creates downforce.
Oh, and even the placement of the backwards facing camera to be able to give you an idea of who's coming up behind you. That was an early version of what is now employed in every race car in modern technology with the rearward facing camera to give you the arrows to tell you when someone's going to come up and pass you. It's integrated into the car. It's genius.
And that rear facing camera is all the 488 Evo Ferrari Challenge cars. So it again, it finds its way into the racing applications. I know the FXX-K Evo actually has side-facing cameras up there below the mirrors that are on the car, and they kind of look back to the side.
Every time it upshifts and there's a pop of flame, it's just brilliant. These cars shift in 60 milliseconds. That's how well the gearbox has been perfected. They're a 7-speed F1 style dual clutch gearbox. It's just everything about this car is made to perfection. It is designed to be exactly what you would want on a racetrack as a non-professional driver. And you know what? Even as a professional driver.
Say, even as a professional driver, there are those reflections off the paint. It's the FXX that actually doesn't have side view mirrors. It has cameras for the side view mirrors. The FXX-K, which is lots of X's and K's and all of that, but
that's the one on screen right now with the big mirror sticking out. Beautiful sound as he goes back to full power down the back straight.
Think about all the integrated systems that make that aerodynamic package. How Reeds and other manufacturers utilize things like that on street cars as well. So it's not like it's an innovation that is seen nowhere else, but to incorporate load sensors, acceleration sensors, deceleration sensors, so that it tells it when you want the downforce and when you want the downforce to bleed off, all of that stuff. I just think it's super cool.
It's so understandable why this is a track-only car and why this is a car that you need mechanics to get ready for you to drive, because there's so many things that it wants to know before it will go fast.
This is not take it to Jiffy Lube and get the oil change. You know, I mean, it's just, right? It's just not. So it's, like you said, it's understandable why it is track only. The other reason that it's understandable is you were talking about driving it on the street and potholes. I'm not thinking about potholes. I'm thinking about the concrete parking, blocks at the end of that. I would cry.
There's no words if that were to happen.
I would cry. A curb in a parking lot pulling up to it. I just.
Ferrari of Austin bringing out one of the 599 XXs. Looks like they might be taking people for rides.
I'll be right back.
Yes. And silence from the booth. I have had a ride around this track with a professional driver in a street car. So not nearly as good. No, Dindo Capello, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in an Audi S3, I think it was. Not nearly as much fun as what these people are getting to enjoy right now. There's something different as well when you put the helmet and the fire suit and the gloves and you go out onto a racetrack knowing that you are in a car capable of doing what these cars can. And you get to just sit there and giggle.
I have to admit, I'm not a good right seat person.
Really?
I'm just not. I think most race car drivers would tell you they're control freaks, and if you don't, maybe the way to get a race car driver to ride in the right seat is put a steering wheel over there, and it could just be on a hub and turn left and right, but just give them something to do, right? And make them feel like
I don't know if a steering wheel or a brake pedal would be more effective.
Well, you could just stomp on the floor. My mom used to do that all the time when I drove, going to the imaginary brake pedal.
Couple of cars diving back into the pit lane now. There's still time to go for today.
Paint.
Oh my gosh, the detail in the wheel arch cover paint. That's magnificent. Yep, passenger says, let's go. They're ready.
They say that now.
Yes. Well, there's plenty of people to assist when getting out of the car and all of a sudden your legs don't work.
Yeah.
Just standing there shaking.
And there's probably no better place to do this, right, Shay? As a passenger, to experience what Ferrari is and to experience the highest levels of technology that they put in GT-based prototype cars, to be able to experience that on a racetrack like Circuit of the Americas, a Formula One circuit, plain and simple, from the clean sheet of paper that it was designed on, to experience Ferrari on a proper Formula One circuit. I mean, that's something that people won't forget. If you've never had an opportunity to do it before, and even if you have, it's an experience that you'll probably never forget.
This is the perfect place in my mind, especially for people like you who do not particularly enjoy being in the passenger seat because of lack of control. Herman Tilke designed this track, and it was built in 2011, opened towards the tail end of that year for the Formula One race. It has runoff. It has room to catch the car if something starts to go wrong. If you're going to go for a ride around, I came from Long Beach last weekend. There is no room. There is constant
concrete
fear.
canyon.
Yes, constant fear. In this beautiful circuit, you've got room to feel like if something were to go wrong, there's possibility to save it.
I say we put this on pause and you and I go for a ride.
Okay.
I'll take you for a ride.
See,
you don't want to do it either, do you?
But you said
with me.
You said I'll take you for a ride. That was my hesitation.
I knew I could stop you from leaving.
We have plenty of professional Ferrari drivers here.
I know that would, but that would be fun for me.
Tony Valander would treat you well, don't you think? He'd be gentle. That's the other great thing as well with the Ferrari Racing Days being this weekend. It means that the drivers of the cars out on track right now have the opportunity to bend the ear of some of the best Ferrari drivers in the world. That also could change your life.
Well, that's Ferrari Racing Days, right? That is the experience, and it's great. You get to see the racing that happens in Ferrari Challenge. You get to, if you're not a challenge driver, you get the experience of seeing what Ferrari is and kind of living what the brand represents and be introduced to it in a way that you may not have been introduced to it before. And if you're willing and you want to invest in it via whether that's driving one of their street cars or entering one of their programs to learn to drive in a high-performance track-like setting, all of that is available, and you get introduced to it on weekends like this, and it's intoxicating for a lot of people. Very intoxicating.
You get introduced to it or addicted to it?
Well, you get introduced and then you get addicted.
Yes.
The introduction comes first, and then just saw, I won't throw names out there, but just saw a old friend from another sports car paddock who had seemingly did a Tom Brady and retired.
I'm glad that's where you went with that.
But saw the big smile on his face walking out of hospitality and said, I hadn't been to one of these before, and now, and I looked at his arms and the veins were still big enough to get a needle in, and it may be back in there, and that's what I think it's what the brand does, but it's certainly what Ferrari Racing Days do. They introduce you and they reintroduce you. You know, you may have been away from a while, but I think once you've experienced it, once you've been a part of the family, you really kind of always are with Ferrari. And we were talking about Carlos de Casada earlier, who has raced all around the world in all types of things, won the Rolex 24 and other races, and he's back in Ferrari Challenge because it's home, it's fun, it's where he met his wife, it's the first racing experience he had in a car, and you come back home. And for a lot of these people, that's what Ferrari is, and for others, it's what Ferrari will be.
Yeah, and this is the place where people never have to feel watched or judged or any sort of negativity in that sense. There's so many people in Ferrari Challenge who have returned to racing. They've been away for a while, maybe 30 years in some cases, and they thought, you know what, I can come back here. This place is pretty nice.
That's exactly what I was thinking at lunch. When I was eating lunch, I was thinking, I should make a return.
I think you should.
Yeah.
I mean, cost-wise, it is the dollar for dollar best place that you can get for track time, for competitiveness. Where else in the world can you race on the same weekend as a Formula One race?
See, now you're talking me into making really bad business decisions personally for myself. Yeah.
But for your happiness.
But for my happiness, that's right.
Business versus happiness.
Well, I need to discuss the boys' remaining college, so that's gone away.
They'll be fine.
I'll let them know.
They'll be fine.
I'll let them know. My oldest son would understand.
Exactly. I think your youngest one would too. Bring him here. Take him to hospitality and say, Sam, this is...
Well,
Sam would be on.
Sam's
Connor's the one we got to
Connor's
convince.
the one I got to work on.
All right, Connor, ice cream every day.
That may work.
There we go. And done. We've got about just under 15 minutes to go of this session.
I love the FXX.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It just has a little more history to me. Because like I said, I look at it, I see the F40, and I don't know. And it's red.
It is. It's red and white and beautifully accentuated. And if I just stand up, I can actually see it. And it sounds...
I was going to say.
Oh, it is magical.
But they scream Ferrari. Literally and figuratively, they scream Ferrari, right? I mean, you know the sound of one. If you've been around a track a lot and you've heard the engines at full song, you know what a Ferrari sounds like. It goes by, you can have your back turned to the racetrack and you go, that's a Ferrari.
Checking the tire pressures.
Checking the blood pressure on the passenger, I think.
Yes. Cooling the brakes off a bit.
See if the rubbery legs are there when they step out.
Big wheels as well on these cars. Let's see, can the passenger hold himself up? He can't. Very impressive. That is good resolve.
I don't know. I saw a little wobble there when they stepped out, I think.
That's natural.
That's natural.
Yeah. The car on the front straight right now with the red and the dark gray in the middle and then the light gray over the wheel arches, that is spectacular.
I would like to know, and I've got data off of the 488 Challenge Evo, obviously because they're racing that this weekend. I would love to see data off of one of these. Oh, I'd love to overlay the acceleration curves. You think about the 488 Evo, 0 to 60, 2.8 seconds, 2.7 seconds, something like that. I wonder what the difference is.
I would love to see one of those video game style races where the cars start at different points.
Oh, yeah.
How far would the gap be between the FXX-K Evo and the Formula One car? Because I don't think it would be that great for them to make the same lap time.
Probably depends on where obviously, what racetrack.
Here.
Yeah.
And who's driving?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, a Formula One driver in the FXX-K Evo and me in a Formula One car.
It'd be about the same.
It would win.
Yeah.
I'm old and afraid. I can't make anything go fast. But, no, it would be interesting. And then you think about the 599 Evo and the 599 XX. And you go, that technology is so smooth. Obviously, the 599 street car, and seen that silhouette before, but not in a trim like this. And wonder what the difference is between the performance of those cars and stuff. And you'd have to bring a street version out to the racetrack and compare it against these, because these can't go to the street, and obviously you're not supposed to be competing and measuring performance on a street, right?
Definitely.
Which I think is the other cool thing. As a Ferrari owner, you get introduced into the brand, but there's always somewhere else for you to go beyond that, because if you want to learn to drive on a racetrack, you certainly can.
Yeah, and the opportunity being opened by the fact that these cars are purpose-built race cars. They are similar looking to the street car, but these are meant for the racetrack. It also creates a nice distinction where people maybe deep down they want to go race on the street, and then you come out here and you realize, oh, no. Racing on the street is a very bad idea. It's not what it's meant for. It's bumpy. It's awful. I want to go race on a racetrack, and Ferrari allows me to do that.
Well, it's more fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's safer and it's more fun, and therefore it's more fun.
And it's legal. We'll throw that in there as well.
I love the dive planes on the front, particularly of the black and yellow one, the number 44. They really stand out. And that just has to go more towards the 1,830 pounds of downforce that's generated at top speed.
That's an impressive number. It really is when you think about it in race car terms and what the engineers have to do. But as we said earlier, these are basically prototype machines made in very, very, very small numbers. And it's all about gathering data and utilizing ideas for these engineers, just saying, all right, we may not want to put that into production, but what if we did that? What would it do? They actually do it. They don't just do it in the virtual world like some manufacturers would do, because obviously, I would say 99.9% of race cars today are designed and tested in the virtual world before a part is ever made. Before they ever make any bit, piece, or part of the car, it has been built and tested in the virtual world for months before they start to manufacture cars. But the great thing about Ferrari is they do this. They actually build them and drive them, quote, race them in the real world. Because we all know, as good as computer simulations are, the real world is a different place.
Yeah. Look at the value of sim drivers nowadays.
Yep.
Every F1 team has a dedicated person who's back at the factory on the race weekends to basically be there and test different possible setups over the course of the weekend.
Well, and you're testing all of that, but there are all kinds of things that can be tested. You go and you model tires.
Yeah.
You go and you model tires for the manufacturer. Pirelli wants to come up with a new tire for Ferrari Challenge. They will design it in the virtual world, and then they'll put it on a simulator on a 488 Challenge Evo car, and they will have one of their sim drivers come in, test the quote, current tire and the specs as it exists on the computer, change those specs, and then test the new tire in the virtual world. And they'll work through all different types of simulations to gain an understanding of what that new tire will do. But like I said, the thing I love about this is Ferrari takes that one step further, and they take their kind of dreams and desires and put them into carbon fiber and aluminum and titanium and unobtainium and build these cars.
I just wanted to hear that.
I know. I was like
waiting for that.
Not saying
moment.
a word.
The green and orange one really is spectacular. The shine of that green.
Look at the detail down there on the splitter. The little every gap was designed to be there and channel a certain amount of air in a certain way over, around, through, whatever. And I used the analogy earlier about world-class sailors who see wind that we don't see. And that's what the aerodynamicists see when they look at the shape, and they're like, okay, if I can get air to go do this and do that, those bits and pieces there on the back.
Thank you, Orbaugh, for these pictures, by the way. I feel like we're looking at something we shouldn't be. It's just, it is art. And right now it's not in motion, but when it is in motion, it goes very, very quickly, so you don't get the opportunity to see all the detail.
It's just super cool. Here's the 599.
That one is great coloring, too. silver with the red accents. That one almost looks like someone has taken the high-vis paint and made it red and then pushed it over the car so that every part of the car that we see with the red, that's where the wind would just disappear and sort of flick off the top.
That's the 599X Evo, FXX Evo.
FXX Evo. All these cars two-seat, by the way.
So you can get in and go for a ride, Shay. That's why they have 2 seats in them.
I like that people were planning like that. It's very, very kind. I like the red under the Ferrari logo as well. That is Ferrari appropriate. You're gonna have the prancing horse sitting on any color. If it's not gonna be yellow, I like it on red. And the horse in the grill as well, below the classic yellow emblem. There has to be some kind of alarm system anytime you touch that. Maybe that's what triggers Batman.
That's the call. Look at that rear wing, the double element.
And the side exhaust, it just effortlessly peeks out from behind the rear wheels.
It's just unique the way the rear wing has that, the end plates that drop down. We've seen end plates that, you know, both go up and down in the past. I can't remember another car where I've just seen the end plates with that drop only. Like as you look at the FXX-K Evo, I mean, it has end plates on the rear wing, but they go from the top all the way down to the bodywork, holding it up. But it's just super cool stuff. And somebody at the factory said, you know, I think this will move air in a different way. Let's try it.
Yeah.
You know? And they did.
That is what racing is all about. Ingenuity. Trying new things. Hey, seatbelts. That might be a good idea. Let's try it. They tried it in racing. Now every car has it.
Something harder than a leather helmet.
Yes, headlights. Let's do that. What about mirrors outside the car so you can see what's coming behind you?
Don't even get me started with mirrors.
What? Because most people don't know that they exist. But all of these things that are now common aspects of cars that have massively improved safety. All right, mirrors are arguable since people don't use them, but they all came from racing.
Bias ply tires to radial tires.
Yeah.
Find me a car that runs on radial tires anymore. That's not a collector car, right?
Yeah.
Or some type of a vintage car. Mirrors, like you said, here in the United States, I always, if I am involved in teen driver education, we always talk about right side mirrors and how teens are still taught to look over their shoulder when they change lanes, so on and so forth, even though we have a mirror. And I always tell parents, your teen is taught to drive this way because we still teach them to drive the way that we used to drive before we had right side mirrors and you had to look over your shoulder.
There was a time before right side
Yeah, I know.
mirrors.
You don't. I hate you.
No, I'm
yes, there was a
stunned.
time before right side mirrors, Shay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like mid to late 70s, I believe, is kind of when they came in big time. I remember, I mean, my dad had station wagons in the early 70s that didn't have right side mirrors.
Wow.
I think my mom had a town car that was like one of the first cars that we had that had a right side mirror. And it was like cool. But I also remember seatbelts and no seatbelts. I remember having cars that didn't have seatbelts. And when we first got seatbelts, how we stuck them down in the seat because they were uncomfortable to sit on. Nobody wore them, but they were in the cars.
Wow. And see,
and I wouldn't get in a car. I wouldn't move a car out of my driveway without a seatbelt.
No. I'm the exact opposite, where I prefer cars that have 5-point harnesses even on the street because
that too. It wrinkles your clothes, but
they're more fun to put on. But you also you
feel
don't
better.
move.
Yeah.
And it's all about economy of motion. If you're going to be in a race car and you're going to be thrown around back and forth, you're going to expend more energy trying to hold yourself in place.
Yep.
So if you have a 5-point harness that's cinched down properly, you don't move as much, and the seat's holding you in as well. It's
and
safer.
you're safer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't see a downside to 5-point harnesses.
But I literally remember, and I know there are people out there who remember it too, pushing seatbelts down in the crack of the seat because they were uncomfortable to sit on. I remember having lap belts and no shoulder harnesses.
I think the Ferrari that my dad had that. Lap belts, but no shoulder. I'm trying to Google it now.
Text him.
It's faster to Google. He would just send me back a picture of the cat if I did that. This session is starting to wind down as we now have how long left in it? The checkered flag should be out. So the drivers out on track right now should start to appreciate these final moments. They will get an opportunity later in the day.
You said should appreciate these final moments in they should come to pit lane after the checkered flag.
They should come to pit lane.
I understand that there have been people earlier today that were in no hurry.
Surely not.
To come in after the session was over.
They are done for today. The XX session is concluded, but they are on track first thing tomorrow morning at 8:50. So they do get the opportunity to go back out again tomorrow, and then again tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. So just because their time is over now doesn't mean their time is over. We do have another session coming up here. That's, of course, Clienti going out on track, and challenge competitors not needed until a little bit later on when the race goes green. But for now, Brian and I are going to step away, maybe find a little bit of dessert, and then we'll be back for when the F1 car comes out. That'll be at 3:05, so don't wander too far.